Welcome everyone. My name is Lars Kreslins. How's it going? Are you all comfortable? Okay. I'm extremely excited to be welcoming you to the Game Changers event this year. This is our 4th year in a row, and I expect this tradition to continue, especially with the increasing enrollment in our animation and game arts program. This conversation is extremely important, so I'm glad so many have been able to participate and attend. Tonight also marks the kickoff of our Women in Animation Film Festival, which includes Game Changers, which was a natural fit since animation in gaming is ever present. Tonight, that said, please tell your friends about the rest of the festival, to include the Philadelphia premiere of Anne Fleming's Window Horses, a special presentation of the films of Faith and Emily Hubley, and the always exciting Adobe Creative Jam. If there are any students in the room today that didn't sign up for the actual Creative Jam, come and talk to me. I could still get you in if you are interested. Then there's also going to be 3 local creative speakers at the event, including paper sculptor Angela Rio, illustrator Jude Buffum, and Urban Outfitters art director Margarita Urbani. There's also going to be a completely gonzo animation mixtape done by the visual artist Jessica Ciacci. It's not to be missed. It's a little weird. It's like walking into somebody researching art on YouTube for 100 minutes. Then there's also going to be a special presentation of Rumiko Takahashi's Inuyasha, the movie Affections Touching Across Time, and that's on the cusp of almost being reserved out. So if you want to come, sign up and get a ticket. Everything's free. So along with all these features we're showing, we're also showing 30 shorts from women animators from around the world. And again, all programming is free, and to get more information, go to moore.edu, Women in Animation 2017. Without further ado, I'd like to welcome you to Game Changers. So I'd like to start by doing introductions down the line.
Hey guys, thanks for coming out tonight. Can you guys hear me? No?
Hello?
Yeah.
Oh, I have to be close.
Okay, hi guys, thanks for coming out tonight. I'm Kat Webster, and I'm a 3D character artist that's working at Bioware right now. And
I'm Harley Dwortz. I'm an animator who works at Rooster Teeth.
I'm Lauren Brown. I am a lead 2D environment artist who works at EA Mobile and previously worked on animated TV series such as Archer.
And I'm Mel Soest, formerly at Bioware and now freelance.
all right, cool. So I'll be moderating, so I'll be asking these questions. So if you guys want to start out with, why did you choose to get into the gaming or animation industry? And we can just go down the line, or you can mix up the order if you want to. Up to you guys.
Okay. I got into animation because I was always an artist and a fan of animation, and loved sci-fi and adventure and creatures and all that crazy stuff. And around the time that I graduated high school, the Art Institute was advertising a lot. I couldn't think of a career that I needed to do, but when I realized that animation was an option for me, it seemed like the only option. So that's just kind of the direction that I went.
Yeah, definitely for all my life. I've been an artist, so, I've been drawing ever since I was 2 years old, and I've always been obsessed with cartoons and animation and, just like video games and everything. So my family was very supportive, and, I did a lot of programs when I was younger, doing animation programs, doing illustration programs. And so when it came time for me to go to college, I was able to, to say, just like, okay, this is what I want to do. I wanted to be an animator, so, that's pretty much the track that I've been aiming toward my whole life, and so here I am.
Animation kind of came to me later in life. I've always loved cartoons and art, but I didn't think you can make a career out of that. And I was like, oh, marine biology, I'm gonna go do that. It wasn't until later on, once I got to college, I realized that that's not for me. I want to do something different in my life. And my brother was in the game industry. He's like, come on out to California. He's She's like, I can get you a job. I'm like, all right, let's do this. I know nothing. But I went out there and I learned some programs, and he got me an internship, and before I knew it, I was in the game industry and doing animation, and I love it.
Awesome. So, were there any games or animations that really stuck out and inspired you early on?
I mean, I wasn't a huge gamer. I loved Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter, still do. But I was really into all the animated films. Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast, Lion King, Titan AE, Land Before Time, Ren and Stimpy, Ninja Turtles. I was just like a big fan of like all kinds of wacky stuff, like Who Framed Roger Rabbit. I just loved watching like everything move in a completely out of this world way, and I wanted to be able to make that happen. So, yeah.
Yeah, I've always been a huge Nintendo nerd ever since I was a kid. Playing Donkey Kong Country, playing Mario, Banjo-Kazooie, all the Nintendo 64 games, and also really big into anime and cartoons, Disney movies, everything. And when I was younger, I would even make my own player's guides because I always wanted to kind of like design my own game as well. And so, those kinds of media have always inspired me. So the biggest thing I think was the anime influence in my life, and then that kind of like, transformed into like, just any animated cartoons, and Disney and Pixar and all those things were my big inspirations.
Yeah, I would watch my brothers play video games. I didn't play a whole lot. I wouldn't say I was a big video game buff, which is kind of funny because where I am now. But I love film. I love animation. I'm super old school. I love Looney Tunes. I really got into animation when Toy Story came out the first time. I was like, you can do this in 3D. This is amazing. I was like, I have to do that because 2D animation, I was like, I'm not good at drawing. I can't do this. But yeah, 3D came out. I was like, this looks like something I could do. So yeah, I was definitely more film, I think, than games, but I enjoy games occasionally.
Very cool. So, how did you guys get your foot in the door, your first studios, and can you describe the hiring process a little bit?
It's really interesting with some studios and some people I know. The process was like very involved, lots of interviews and waiting and setup. A lot of times, though, if you have a large network and you can get someone to recommend you, things can move really quickly. So, like my first gig. My career advisor at the Art Institute ended up becoming the hiring manager at Obsidian Entertainment, and he was able to bring me in for an interview for an internship there, which just sort of kicked things off. And after that, I went through the internship working on Aliens at the time. It wasn't shipped, but then I was kind of floating around in California after this internship, and it was hard to find work. And Melissa here actually had moved to Texas and started working at Edge of Reality on Sims Pets. And because she's my friend and they were looking for animators, she called me up and said, hey, I know you're looking for work, you want to come out here? And like things happened really fast, and I've kind of been in Texas ever since working out there.
Yeah, when after I graduated from Savannah College of Art and Design, I opted to stay in Savannah during the summer, where I just pretty much put all my artwork on, various freelance websites, different portfolios, social media, all that stuff. Just trying to really get my work out there and building my portfolio during that summer and applying to internships and various things. And, they all rejected me, but at the very end of the summer, because it happens all the time, but at the end of the summer, I got an email from the background director at Floyd County Productions, and she emailed me and she was like, hey, we have a job opening for you. We want you to apply for this job for Archer. And I was just like, what? Okay. She was like, so she made me do an art test, a 24-hour art test. I used all 24 hours, stayed up all night, and turned it in and went to work the next day. And I believe it was about 3 weeks later, I had moved to Atlanta and got the job. So that's how I got it.
You didn't have a network there? You just got in like by your chops? Like,
I mean, there were people that I knew there, so I was able to cite them like when I had to submit my cover letter and everything, but she contacted me first. So she saw my work and she saw that I was kind of local in Georgia. So it was mainly like, the fact that my work was out there on various websites and that I was in state that, that made that connection happen.
A lot like her, my connections with my family. So network literally has been my best friend this whole time. I went up to California with no background, no nothing, and I was like, I'm gonna go to the art school in San Francisco, it's gonna be amazing. And I was was like, I'm just gonna do a summer job. I like got the second day into my job, and my brother's like, you gotta come interview for my studio. And I was like, I have no experience. He's like, it doesn't matter. So I went with him, and 3 years later I was there. Yeah, and then it's just the community in California was huge, and that's where I met my husband. He was also in the game industry, and between his friends and my friends, like when I got to Texas, I had no problems finding work. It's just everyone knew everyone because the industry is so small. It's big, but it's so small at the same time. Everyone knows everyone, and just so finding work was easy.
And you, once you were there, she kind of had to learn on the job. Like she had the opportunity to.
That was hard.
Like her internship was on the job, so I think you were like working, 8-10 hours a day, and then you would stay and do like basically your homework for 4 or 5
so
hours.
I was like, I got there and I'm like, look, this is awesome. Thank you so much for this opportunity. However, I'm only going to spend a few months here, and I'm going to go to school, And they're like, okay, whatever. And then like 3 months went by, they're like, so are you still going to go to school? Because we'll hire you full time, and we'll teach you everything on the job. So I think my foot in the door was a little different than most people's. I got lucky. However, I think I missed out on a lot of opportunities by not going to school. I think my struggles and challenges through the game industry, and I've been in it for 10 years now, has definitely, not going to school, has impacted me in good and bad at the same time. And so I've definitely struggled with that a little. But at the same time, I learned a lot. You learned a lot on the job. They don't mess around because they have deadlines that need to be met, and they're not going to just sit around and hold your hand. So there's a lot of extra time on the weekends and after work and lunch breaks, and I was just glued to the screen. I'm like, what can I do? But I sat next to incredible people who were patient and super talented, and I thank everything for them for that. Otherwise, I would not be where I am now.
All right, can you guys explain briefly what it's like to work in the industry? Like, I guess in your current jobs right now.
So working in games, but most studios have a pretty laid back quality in terms of like, you can wear what you want. At some studios you can even drink at work, at certain hours. And I work at Rooster Teeth. We kind of do all kinds of crazy stuff that a lot of companies would think are like inappropriate. But while you are having a good time and you are with your friends and you can ride a skateboard through the studio like screaming at the top of your lungs, at the end of the day you do have to produce good work and meet your deadlines, because if you don't, you'll fall quickly. So it's about balancing. Your work often becomes your social life in some ways. So it's about balancing that fun and that social life with the responsibility required to produce good work and get things done on time.
Yeah, I definitely feel like a lot of people have an impression that when you work in games or animation, that you go into work and you just play games and you just throw a ball around with your friends and just talk and chat. It's really, you come in, you're focused, especially in the environment that I'm in currently, because my previous studio was actually a lot like that, where we could just kind of go crazy and just run around and talk, yell at each other, but we were also still very focused and working and had to work long hours to produce very good work. In my current environment, it's a lot more corporate. So, we still shoot Nerf guns at each other, near the end of the day. But for the most part, it's, for me, I'm a lead, so I have to, do a lot of planning. I have to give people reviews, focus on the actual work that I have to do, making sure everything's quality checked by my art director. There's a lot of stuff that goes into the job. So, it can be a lot of fun. It's a really good environment. You can wear whatever you want. Everybody's of a like mind and everybody's passionate about games. So it's definitely a good environment to work, but it's definitely work.
Yeah, they want you to be creative, so they don't want to tie you down and this is what you have to do, blah blah blah, follow these strict rules. Some companies, I've been in a lot of companies, I've been indie studios, I've done freelancing, big corporate studios, and everyone's a little different. And you still have your core hours, you have to focus, and there is even some studios that do focus hours, and they do want you to they don't want you just sitting at your desk 24/7 working away. They want you to be able to get up and walk around and not be so boggled in your mind if you need a break. There's not okay, you can only take a 15-minute break here and your lunch is specific here. They want you to be creative, and if you need to walk away from your desk because you're frustrated, then get up and walk away from your desk. I think they're really chill about that. And each studio is very different. But for the most part, yeah, it's very chill and relaxed. You just wear whatever and play pool. And Bioware has pool tables and ping pong tables and arcade games and snacks, and you can just kind of hang out, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, like Melissa's saying, there are core hours because it can get loose, but because it's creative and they want you to be creative, you do kind of have the sense that you are the boss of your own time. 'Cause, I mean, sometimes, you can work something out where, like, if you're a more creative person, in the evening, maybe you come in a little later, work a little later. Some people come in a little earlier, leave a little earlier, as long as everyone's there for those core hours so that we can collaborate.
Kind of going off those questions or answers, have you guys had to work a lot of overtime in the industry because I guess you can't focus on your time management issues or anything?
Yes.
I mean, have you guys ever had to work late to finish your assignments? Like, you can't get good work done in like an 8-hour day sometimes. Yes, there can be a lot of overtime.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's not all the time. Like, it depends on what type of project. Like, I've done online or Kickstarter type projects, and they release updates every 3 or 4 weeks. So those first 3 weeks, you're just kind of going through the steps, and then that last week they're like, oh, we have an update, like this has to get pushed out, no bugs, and so sometimes you put in a little extra work. And then it kind of all falls around like, is your production team good, or the schedule's good? And then another thing too is sometimes you have a deadline, and that deadline is sometimes really set in stone. But you'll start working on something, and they'll be like, oh wait, no, designs change, stories change, characters change. You're like, okay, I gotta go back, fix this, and then but at the same time is it may take you like 3 weeks to do this, and now you only have 2 weeks, and the deadline's still here, and you're like, okay, I should redo all this work. I'm gonna be here this weekend and dinner time, but yeah, there's gonna be times where it's gonna happen, and I know some people actually don't mind it, and they'll work extra just because they like to be there, and other people have families, and they're like, yeah, I kind of have to go home.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, for sure. It definitely really depends on the place you work and what kind of studio you're at, because currently at EA, actually, I haven't really worked that much overtime at all. Like, sometimes I'll opt to stay because I'm a lead, and I'll take that responsibility up so my team doesn't have to stay late. But at my old studio, in animation at least, things could get as bad as like 80-hour weeks for like the lead artists, and you would be staying at the studio from like 8 a.m. to midnight and just like trying to get your work done, trying to turn it out. So it really depends on the planning. It depends on the complexity of the work that you have to do, the quality that you're trying to meet. So it's just like if you can manage your time around it, you might be able to get it done. But at the same time, if you're overworked and you're tired and you haven't had any time to go home and decompress, you might not produce as good work. So sometimes it's like, even if your studio is trying to push you to work really late, sometimes you have to kind of take it upon yourself to be like, okay, like I can't do tonight because I just need to recuperate and relax a little bit and get my brain working again. So it gets crazy, but you don't always have to fall victim to working super late hours if you just speak up for yourself and try to come to an understanding with your managers and things like that. So sometimes moderation is really good, because after that period of time, I was like, I can't do this anymore, because you need to have a life outside of work. So it's important.
yeah, and like in the beginning, it's kind of hard because you think you're slower, and you're like, oh, why is this taking me so long to do this? And yeah. But over time, like you start to manage your own schedule. Like the producers will be like, okay, you need to get this done at a certain time, and you'll have a schedule. But you also need to have your own personal schedule and be like, okay, this amount of work is going to take me this long. Am I going to really make this deadline within this amount of time? So you kind of just have to. You can't just rely on your production team. You can't just rely on your lead to do the scheduling. You have to be your own producer and really manage your own schedule. And then, yeah, like Lauren said, I've done 80-hour work weeks, no big deal. Like weeks at a time where I'm just like, what month is it?
And then at the end of it, you don't feel like a human anymore. It's great.
Yeah, days just kind of go by, and you're like, wait, I thought it was twice a Saturday. But yeah, those they will happen, and it's okay. But as long as you don't do it too often, and you definitely have to focus on your health. Like your health is a big thing, and if you let that slide, which can happen very quickly through times of crunch, then yeah, you sometimes have to walk away and be like, I need to go home, I need at least 6 hours of sleep, and I'll come back after a good breakfast.
So have you guys always been animators, or have you jumped around different positions?
I jumped around a little. I started off, well, I was an art intern, so I did everything from backgrounds to collision, building collision, doing like UI stuff, and then on the side I did animation, because they're like, yeah, we're not going to just hire you as an animator, you have to prove yourself. So I think that first year I worked on God of War, and I did a lot of background art and all the collision for the game and stuff like that. And eventually worked my way up to animation, but pretty much the last 9.5 years I've been an animator.
Yeah.
I'll just go quick. I've always done character animation. I haven't really done anything else professionally except like random freelance graphic design and stuff. So yeah.
As freelance, you have to wear all the hats.
Yeah, that's true. You do.
All the hats.
Yeah, I fell into my main position was a background artist or an environment artist, so I actually fell into that kind of in a weird way because that's the position that I was asked to do. But I also I was able to be a character artist, a character animator, a layout artist, and then just like mainly positions that were focused around characters and environments. So I bounced around it, but it was just interesting that I for most of my life I trained to be an animator specifically, and that I ended up being a background illustrator. So sometimes that can happen too, but as long as you have the skill set, you should be able to wear most hats as long as you have like the proper kind of like knowledge of how each area works.
Yeah, it's definitely good to know how each pipeline works, because if you're just only focused on your section of the pipeline, then you're not actually working as a team with the rest of everyone. You don't have to be like an awesome VFX artist or know sound or even know how to code, but as long as you have a general idea of how those work, then you can work as a team and make great games or great film or whatever you're working on.
Yeah, and definitely if you have some knowledge of how each pipeline works, you can do more to actually help out your fellow teammates to make their job easier. Because if you know the kind of like stuff they need from you, then you can actually produce that instead of you're just making things in a vacuum and then they're taking their work later. No, we actually can't work with this. So it's like it's good to communicate with your other teammates and make sure that you're all on the same page, even if it's not your area of expertise.
I think as long as you're like just through the experience of working on a team, you'll see how your work affects the pipeline, and just be open and aware of your surroundings. And at the same time, don't stress yourself out too much about learning how to do every single thing. Like you could spend the rest of your life just learning how to animate characters beautifully and never ever touch a single texture or a single light or anything like that. So it is good to specialize, but like these guys said, like don't put blinders on. So.
So do you guys prefer working in big studios, small studios, mobile studios, or as freelance artists?
They all have their ups and downs. They definitely do. I feel like the bigger studios, the more corporate environment has a lot more perks, a lot more stability, a lot more structure. We have a lot of meetings, which I'm not sure if I like or not. Smaller studios are interesting because it's more of a family environment, a close-knit kind of thing where you can kind of like have a little bit more flexibility, a little bit more freedom. But at the same time, that's where the long hours come into play because management might not be as solid, might not be as strong, and drama can arise easily too because things aren't as regulated as a bigger studio. And freelance, you're kind of, you get to manage your own schedule, you get to kind of like set your own rules, but at the same time, it's like you have to also, be very good at time management, being very good at self-management. And sometimes if you're not a person who, really does that, then it might not be the best idea. And also it's about the stability as well because, you have to worry about health insurance, you have to worry about, like where do I get money from next? So it's like they all have their ups and downs, so it's really what an individual person would prefer to have in their life, which I think area I would like better, but I think personally I like a smaller studio better.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Lauren kind of nailed it on the head. Freelance, like I'm doing freelance right now, and I kind of like it because I have 2 kids at home, and it's easier for me to run around and take them to appointments and this and that, because I can work later at night or on my lunch or on weekends. So I've done that before, and that's fun, but I do enjoy a studio environment because at home I'm just kind of by myself. I have to wear multiple hats. Everything is through email, which the communication part of that can get challenging. I love small studios because, they're like families. But then again, you also have to wear multiple hats. I think crunch is a lot more, it's going to be there a lot more. And I've worked at big studios, and it's fun. Yeah, there's a lot more people, so I don't feel like it's as much of a family. You tend to tie yourself more into your department, where smaller studios, you get to know the programmers, the designers, the audio team, the producers. Like, you get to know everyone really well. Whereas a big studio, it's just, okay, here's my animation team, and I know some of the designers that I work with. Like, I did a lot of combat animation, so I only worked with the combat animators. I didn't really talk to the environment designers and combat designers, and I didn't really have to talk to VFX. I didn't have to talk to just the regular environment guys. I did every once in a while, like, hey guys, but I didn't really have to. And a lot of people tend to just, zone in at their desk, and that's it. You don't have to like, who's that person? But I'm not gonna lie, like, I enjoy, the fun games and the events that Bioware did, and all the delicious food they brought in, and all the swag, and it's, some people really enjoy that type of environment. Some people only like small studios. I like that I had a chance to get to do all three, and it's a lot of fun.
You guys covered it. I don't have anything to add to that. So I'm not quite sure if this question is for you guys, but have you ever had to keep your portfolios up to date between jobs, or like how do you keep them up to date and make sure that you're not?
Keep them up to date.
And how do you keep from falling behind, I guess, in the industry if you continue? I guess if you're at the same studio for a long time, you can get stagnant in that role.
Yes, that is really hard, because even though you may feel like you're stable on a job and like you got full time and everything, this industry is so, it'll just like fall off the map real quickly. I've seen big studios close down within like weeks. And it's just a ton of people lose jobs, and you never know that will happen. So anytime, like for me, anytime I finally get new work done, it's all polished, it looks good, then I save it out and I make sure I update my reel. But yeah, there's been plenty of times, and I know a ton of people, because what happens is, say you're working, just doing your thing, and all of a sudden, like, giant layoffs happen, and then you're like, oh, I don't have a job. Oh wait, I didn't collect any of my work. Oh wait, how am I supposed to apply to my new job? I have nothing to show. Yeah, don't leave stuff like that happen. I've seen it happen to too many people, like really talented people, and it was hard for them to get jobs because they had nothing to show for their work, and it's really kind of sad. So yeah, and it is hard because you start getting comfy and you're just like, oh, whatever. But yeah, you definitely just, every once in a while, I literally will go onto Google Calendar and I'll be like, all right, it's been a month, or I've done 4 really good animations. I need to go update my reel. But there's been plenty of times I'm like, oh, it's been a while. I need to really update my reel.
Yeah, I'm always of the mindset that I need to stay on my toes and just, make sure that my portfolio is up to date. And the thing is, it's really hard to stay motivated once you've been staring at a screen for 8 hours a day, and then you have to go home and do it again. So a lot of what I do is I force myself to do it by applying to conventions, applying to things that force me to produce artwork, just so I can keep my portfolio up, because if I'm not motivated at home, I'm not going to want to do anything. So if I have a fire under my butt, I will actually want to produce artwork. So, a big part of it is just making sure that you're motivated to continue to produce, and, take what you're doing professionally, take what you're doing personally, and make sure that you keep that up to date, because it's very easy to be complacent and fall behind. And you really do never know when, your job might fall out from underneath you. When I was working in animation, we would always have hiatus for 3 months without pay. And so, when you're in that situation, you have to make sure that, it's okay, am I coming back to work? What's going to happen? So, I never operate under the impression that I'm stable for any reason. So I always have to stay on my toes to make sure that my work is up to date and ready to go if ever I need it to be there for me. So, yeah.
These guys are absolutely right. When you're at work, always save out versions of your work as you go. I think the best thing you can do is not turn it into a big deal, which I have done time and again, where I've just been I have so much work to do, and I put it off and I put it off. The best thing you can do is just say 10 minutes a day, or 1 hour every weekend, and by the end of the month, that's 4 hours you've worked on your content, and that's all you really need. Once you have a steady body of work that you're producing, you just need to take the time to archive it, and that way when opportunities arise, you're ready for them, because there's nothing worse than you planned a camping trip with your friends, and then all of a sudden, like, this guy, you know, somebody from the studio you've always wanted to work at tries to recruit you, and like you have to stay home that weekend to get all your shit together. Excuse me. This happened to me before. It's a stressful time. You know, everything's riding on that moment. You're not ready. Like, it doesn't have to be like that. So just take a little time out of your day to make sure that you're good.
Awesome. So with, I guess the industry as a whole is kind of unstable for each job, because me personally, I kind of work contract work, and that's a year at a time, or less sometimes. And then layoffs always being a thing in the back of your mind. Have you guys had to move around a lot in the industry? Have you guys ever been laid off, or how many times have you been laid off?
I've been laid off from every single company I've ever worked at, including the one I work at now. But I mean, a lot of jobs in this industry are contract-based. You get hired often, you know, with 3 months to sort of prove yourself and see how well you can do. And depending on how the company is doing, they may at that point decide to take you on full-time, or they'll just, you know, bring you on for a project. And if they have the money to keep their team, they'll keep you on. But oftentimes, companies are funded on a per project basis, which is just the nature of the industry, which you can, you know, allow to work in your favor. Sometimes it's nice to have time in between jobs. The company I'm at now has a very different history than a lot of the game studios in the last couple of years that I have worked at. Most of the companies I worked at were kind of on their way out or on their way down or going through hard times, which is why I was laid off. The company I work at now, Rooster started as a small indie company in Austin, Texas. I was employee number 30, and now our numbers are breaching 250 employees, and everyone has gone from contract to full-time, and things have just gone up and up and up, and we've reached a broader and broader audience, and it's kind of been amazing to be on that ride. It's been insane to watch what I do reach people around the world, and then we're even have a presence in Japan now. It's crazy. So yeah, it can be bad, but it can also be really good. You just kind of got to go along for the ride.
Yeah, technically I haven't been laid off per se, but hiatus, like I said before, was always a feature when I was working in animation specifically. You know, just like having to prepare for like a 2 or 3 month hiatus, and the uncertainty of like not knowing if I was gonna, you know, come back in the next 3 months, because it all depended on whether or not we had anything to work on. Because, you know, we operated in seasons, so once the season was over, you had no more work unless we were working on something else that was like a pilot or a pitch or some new show that was under, you know, that was up and coming. So if the only thing that we had to work on was Archer, then once that season was over, everybody leaves the studio until we get our next season. And so we were never sure. It's like, okay, like, are we going to get renewed? Like, what's going on? And then once we find out, we can all come back to work. So technically, I haven't been laid off, but we've had hiatus instead.
I've only really been laid off once, and that was back in California during 2010, when just pretty much every game and film studio it was just a really bad time to be in California in 2010. Which is, and my husband was also in the game industry. He got laid off too, so we found work in Texas and we moved out here. Ever since I've been in Texas, I've been contract. So technically I've never really been laid off, it's just my contract comes to an end. And that's very common for animators. Animators aren't normally brought in on the beginning of a project, they're brought in or towards like the middle to end, because that's when they really need animations to come in, because in the meantime, a lot like Kat, who does character modeling, you need the characters modeled, you need concept, design, character models, then rigged, and they're like, okay, now we can get them to move. Now let's bring in all the animators. So they do, and then they get really animation heavy towards the end. And then after that, once a project's done, they don't really need animators, so if you have a big team, they just kind of dwindle down to like your lead or maybe 1 or 2. So yeah, it's normally just project to project, so whenever a project comes in, I just, again, with the demo reel and your work, just make sure it's up to date all the time, because usually the last month or 2, you don't really know if you're actually going to be on until the end. Mm-hmm. So yeah, the last 2 months, it's usually just polish time anyways, and bug fixing and a lot of QA type stuff. So I just make sure I get all my work done. That's usually my time to slow down and just get all my stuff together and start. That's usually when I start looking for other jobs, actually.
Quick one, how many states have you guys lived in?
Work or just in general?
For work, sorry, for work, ever since you got in the industry.
Okay.
Technically 3.
2. Yeah.
That's not too bad.
Yeah, it's not that bad. It's probably gonna be more later.
Yeah.
We'll see.
So, as in such a male-dominated field, do you guys feel like you've been treated any different for being a female, or is that never really a thing that you've thought about?
Oh, that's definitely something that I've had to think about. Oh, it's definitely male dominant, and it's nothing wrong with that. I think just trying to break it, and recently it's definitely gotten a lot easier. I mean, within the last 5 years, women have been a lot more accepted into the game industry. I think at first, I don't even know how to describe it. You go into a studio, and like my first studio I went to, there was 25 guys, and it was just me and another girl. And then slowly got bigger, and there was quite a few studios I've been to where I was the only female in the studio, lots of men, and a lot of them were very accepting. Some of them were just, they could care less about my opinion. They just like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about, or they just kind of ignore me. And since I didn't have the schooling background like I wanted, I had to prove myself even more so. And because they would just look at my resume and they're like, oh, you just shipped this one game, or you just did this, like you have no experience. Like why should I care about your work? So there's a lot, and there's a lot of people who have helped me along the way. I wish there was more women I could say that were my mentors, but I pretty much have to be my own mentor. But you know, a lot of the women, since there isn't a lot of women in the game industry, I feel like once we do meet, we tend to stick together. There's not too much cutthroat going on. So it's been really great. I think, you know, if we can just stick together. But and sadly, and just recently too, there's still a lot that goes on, a lot of sexual harassment that I've dealt with. I know some of you guys have dealt with issues. And it's kind of hard because you want to be professional. You want to work alongside your colleagues, you know, male or female. You don't want problems. You just want to make art. You want to make cool games, and you don't want to worry about, you know, is my outfit gonna like distract my colleague, or is he being nice to me because he wants to go on a date, or he actually cares about my work. And there's been a lot of times where like people are like, oh, are they just hiring you because they need more, you know, girls in the office, or do they actually think I'm talented? So that's been quite a challenge for a while. But like I said, it's gotten much easier, especially in like the last 5 or 6 years. I don't know how you guys, but.
Yeah, definitely. You know, you'll meet a lot of like different biases in the industry for sure. Like for example, I've been, you know, a lead at both of my studios, and oftentimes when people come over to ask questions about, you know, something on my team, it'll be a guy, and he'll look around like, who's the lead here, and he'll automatically defer to another man and ask him the question, and then I'll have to interject. It's like, this is where you can find the file, this is where it is, let me show you. So it's just like I have to like often, you know, redirect them, like, this is me, I'm the person of contact, talk to me. So it's just, you know, it's not conscious, like, you know, things are definitely changing, like, you know, like you said, like, you know, a lot more women are getting into the industry now, so people are starting to become more aware of, you know, how to treat women and how, you know, like, yes, we're people, and and we are your coworkers and treat us as such. But yeah, you definitely, like, you know, like there were definitely like issues of like, you know, sexual harassment and like people, you know, like trying to take advantage, and, you know, it's like, oh, like being nice because they wanted to date you, and then, you know, if you rejected them, then there's like issues there as well. So you know, definitely, you know, it can be like a difficult thing to deal with, but I just want to focus on my work, and I just want to focus on, you know, producing good quality and being a good leader. So, you know, I try not to let it distract me, but sometimes it's hard, and sometimes you have to advocate for yourself as well. If you're experiencing issues with a man, it's just like, it's hard to bring it up because, you know, it's easy for other people to take sides, but at the same time, it's like you have to think about the other people who might be affected by this later down the line. It's like you don't want bad things to happen to other women, and so it's really good to call things out when you see them. So yeah, it can be difficult, but for the most part, I feel like, you know, most of my coworkers are all accepting. My original background team was actually almost all women, And then my current art team, I'm the only woman there, but I feel like they respect me on that team. So, you know, it's going good, and I've been helping educate my fellow coworkers about, you know, like women's issues and how to treat women. So they've been pretty receptive to it. So it hasn't been as bad as it could be, for sure. I'm definitely very lucky.
Yeah, for the most part, I guess you do have to look out for things, but if you see yourself as a talented contributor, then other people will see you as such. And maybe in some ways, you know, I went to college with primarily a bunch of guys. There weren't as many girls in the media arts and animation program I attended. And then the studios I initially started working at were predominantly male, and perhaps I almost subconsciously adopted a more like nonchalant, coarse, like manner of being around the guys just to fit in, because and maybe as such I just was never treated in a way that I felt I was belittled or anything. I mean, if anybody was going to come at me with a joke that someone might be offended by, I'd come right back at them with an even more offensive joke. So I don't know, it hasn't really been an issue. And then like Rooster Teeth, the animation department started with about 10 people, and they were all guys except for me. And now it's like 70 to 80 people, and it's at least half female. However, I am in the film industry now as opposed to the game industry, and for whatever reason, there seem to be more women in the film industry. But these women are incredibly talented, and I think just, you know, by proof of concept, people are seeing that being a woman has nothing to do with, you know, the quality of your work. It just brings, you know, another viewpoint to the table.
Do you guys feel pretty supported by other women in the industry, or would you say it's pretty cutthroat?
I feel pretty supported. Melissa had started in the industry a lot sooner than me, and she had to be her own mentor, but Melissa was one of my original mentors. I mean, she had already been in the field for a couple of years, right when I was getting started. And then the women I work with now are all incredibly talented, and yeah, I have felt nothing but support from my fellow female animators.
Yeah, I definitely felt nothing but support from mine too, especially in my old studio, Floyd County, because, you know, like I said, my team was mainly women, and, you know, we would all go to lunch together, we would all just talk, we would all just, you know, commiserate with each other about anything that was happening. So I definitely felt comfortable there, and you know, I was always able to go to my leads, and, you know, when I became a lead myself, I was able to go to my former lead and, like, you know, ask her for guidance and, you know, mentorship, and she was happy to give me advice and happy to guide me. And you know, at my current studio, there's not as many women, but there's still, you know, there's women there that are very supportive and very proactive about making sure that, you know, they advocate for themselves and advocate for each other. And, you know, I think that's really important. So I've had really good experiences with other women in the industry, and some of them are my best friends. So, yeah.
Yeah, pretty much the same. I don't think really any cutthroat, really, just getting a lot of support. I mean, of course, I don't know what it's like in the film industry, but I know in the games we're all kind of nerdy and shy and, you know, anti-social at times. So I wouldn't really say that's, you know, cutthroat or anything, but yeah, for the most part, we're all pretty supportive of each other. It doesn't matter what department we're in. Most of my good females friends in the game industry are programmers or artists and animators as well. I just kind of know a little of everyone, and it's nice.
Have you guys ever suffered from low self-confidence, and how did you overcome that? Is there any advice that you can give other girls who may also struggle with confidence issues?
Every day. It's really hard. When I'm done looking at my work, I always feel like it doesn't matter how long I spend my time on an animation. I always look at it like, oh man, I know I could do better. I know I can do better. And I don't think I've ever been like, wow, that's so amazing. I'm done. Do my job. I wouldn't really say low self-confidence, but there's definitely been days I'm just like, I quit. I can't do animation anymore. I'm just going to go find another career. How many times have you and I got together and we're like, that's it, I'm going to go.
We're going to be park rangers.
We're going to go take the world. Animation's not for us.
Because it does get really hard, and sometimes
it's very challenging at times.
You're constantly pushing yourself to be better, but I think that people who are in this field are the kinds of people who are never really satisfied with their work, and that's like it's kind of like being a surfer and like, you know, you're always chasing that wave, like that perfect, you know, drawing or animation, and sometimes it just smashes you down and it kills you, but like you get back up again and you go back to the computer and you try again, and it's better every single time. You have to just get used to critiques and seek critiques. Do not be afraid to get your head chopped off, because like the more times it happens, the less it hurts and the more you learn. Like I've hidden my work at times because I just, you know, I don't want to show it until it's ready. But it's never going to be ready, and it's never going to be good unless you get more eyes on it. So competence, the people who don't make it in this field are the people who let the fear prevent them from growing. So yeah, I think I lost my train of thought, but.
It's very true though, 'cause,
Yeah.
it's really hard because sometimes you get a character and you're like, I'm so excited. It's like, I love creatures. I'm not really a big biped animator, even though I do a lot of combat animation. I love creature animation. Like that's my thing. So when I get a new creature and a really cool beast, I'm like, oh, I'm so excited. So I start doing and I start doing some animations, and I'm like, oh, this is so awesome. I'm like, look at him climb, ah. And then someone come over like, yeah, no, that's not gonna work. And I'm just like, oh, my heart like breaks and sinks to the floor. And there's so many times I'm just like, whatever, I just can't do this anymore. Or there's times where you just kind of plateau and you're like, why can I not get this? Like, why is something like, even walk cycles, there's so many times where you have to do a walk cycle like 1,000 times over, even though I've done it for years, and I'm just like, why am I not getting this? Like, how is this so hard? This is like animation 101. But it happens. And those are the moments you have to step back and take a break. Or go ask for advice, or have someone else look at your work. Or my favorite thing is to go watch my favorite animation film. I should be like, I kind of just, like, I love Pixar, and sometimes I'll just have to go and I'll sit down with my daughter, I'm like, what do you want to watch? Let's just watch a movie. And we'll watch a movie, and I'll be like, I just feel kind of like inspired again, and I'm like, okay, here's my motivation. And then I go back to the computer, and then it just, for some reason, it just clicks. And yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Like a big issue that I always faced when I was especially when I transferred over to the game industry, was this little insidious thing called Imposter Syndrome, where you think that every day you have to doubt. It's like, oh, am I good enough to be here? Do I have the skills to be here? How did I get here? Like, did they only like me because my interview was good? Like, what if I can't prove myself day to day? It's been a year since I've been working in this industry, and I still have these thoughts to this day. And I was just like, am I the only one who feels like this? But when I went to this convention called Dragon Con, and there were these amazing artists that were there, famous artists that, well known, everybody knows about them. And I would talk to some of them, and I come to find out that they suffer from the same thing. These amazing artists who are worldwide known, famous, suffer from imposter syndrome too. And so I'm just like, everybody goes through this. This is a thing, like, people will constantly compare themselves to other artists, constantly bring themselves down because I'm not good as that person. It's like, you have to remember that there's always going to be somebody better than you, but at the same time, it's like, you always have you have limitless potential to also grow yourself, and you have your own path to take. So comparing yourself to other people is really damaging. It's always good to look at artists for inspiration, but at the same time, don't compare themselves to you to put yourself down. It's that's a really important thing to remember. So yeah, that's one of the biggest things that kind of helped me build my confidence better, was just realizing that other people are in the same boat, and other people feel the same way regardless of how talented they are. So yeah.
Oh, very good. Awesome. So do you guys have any female industry professionals that you look up to personally, or have a mentor or anything? So that's it.
Yeah, currently at my current studio, there's a big advocate there. She was actually at the panel last year, Allison Carrier. She's always making sure that that things are going good in the game, and making sure that things aren't misogynistic or culturally insensitive, and she always runs things by me. It's Lauren, what do you think? And she always makes me feel like my opinion is very valued and important, and and she kind of makes sure that I remember that myself, and that that my feedback is good, and that what I have to say is is strong, and I have experience, and I know what I'm talking about. So she's definitely really big in making sure that we keep our confidence up, and reaffirming each other, and making sure that we're on top of things. So yeah, she's definitely my current really good mentor. So yeah.
Bioware is actually the first studio that I've met so so many women, at least on the animation side. I don't know if I really have any female mentors, but there's definitely been a lot of people that have helped me get to where I am, and I would kind of consider them to be my mentors. But yeah, I try to like just, you know, women like talented women like we have up here. I just kind of try to follow their lead.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the same way. I'm not the kind of person who follows specific artists, you know, too much. I mean, I follow work, but I'm terrible with names and like, oh, this is the person that I draw inspiration from, etc. It's like mostly bodies of work that I follow. But when I was starting out, Melissa was an amazing mentor for me because she would, you know, review my work and, you know, keep my confidence up when I was feeling like I can't do this. And now I currently work with some really talented women. Kim Newman, she's just like a beast. She just animates like at the speed of light, and she picks up, you know, animation like it's nobody's business. And this girl I work with, Millie Gonzalez, she has this really cartoony style that is amazing. She's always drawing stuff with like crazy overlap and follow through and squash and stretch. And I work next to my lead. My lead is a woman. Her name is Paula Decanini, and she's just very organized and on top of things and has a really, you know, solid understanding of how movement works. And she's super passionate. So it's mostly the people that are around me. It's not just women that I draw inspiration from.
So how is being a female in the industry perceived by your male counterparts, like your coworkers, your friends, your family? Are they mostly encouraging, or have they tried to discourage you in any way?
Mostly encouraging.
Yeah, I've never met opposition for being a woman specifically. Like, no one told me this, like, oh, like, you know, you're a woman, you can't work in this industry. It's like, no, it's just, the people who have been around me, my family's incredibly supportive. You know, my friends are really supportive, and my coworkers have been, you know, like really good people. So, yeah, like, the only opposition I've seen is just like the internet trolls online and, you know, people saying that women don't belong in this industry. But those are the people who are the vocal minority, and they shouldn't have any impact on how things actually are in the industry.
So have you guys ever found yourself like completely out of inspiration, and how do you I guess burn that passion back to animation? Or is there any sources that you look at or anything to re-inspire you?
Miyazaki movies actually are my biggest one. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it happens a lot. Yeah, like we were saying earlier, it's really easy to get burnt out, especially when you're working a lot of hours and when you're, you know, when you're putting all of your effort into, you know, just like your professional work. But, you know, just like remember to get sunlight, back away from the screen for a little bit. Sometimes you just have to recharge and experience different things that are outside of, you know, art, or, you know, just like see different, like go to shows or see something in the world. That's usually what I do. To just like recharge my batteries, and you know, and then later when I'm ready to get back into it, sometimes I look at other artists for inspiration. Sometimes I watch just beautiful animated movies like Miyazaki movies, or sometimes I just like try to draw until something sticks. It depends on what kind of mood I am, but you know, there's many different ways to recharge, but it's very easy to get burnt out as well. So it's like you always have to kind of keep on top of it.
Oh yeah, like having hobbies is the best thing you could do. And like I said earlier, your health is super important. But yeah, like I always feel like when I start to burn out, I'm either just stuck at the computer for too long. There's been plenty of times where I've tried to animate someone doing some combat or whatever, and I'm like, why is this just not working? And I realize that it's because I've been sitting still at my desk for weeks, and I'm like, I haven't moved myself. How am I supposed to make this character in screen move if I haven't even moved myself? Like I almost forgot how like an arm like does this. It's because I haven't done that. And I love being outdoors and running around, and I kind of love to people watch, which is, I think, great for animation because everyone has their own crazy style, and sometimes you just need to get out there and watch just the world go by, and I feel like that helps. And yeah, Miyazaki movies are great. Any kind of animated movies, or talking to other animators, and just kind of remembering why you got into this field. I love animation, and it's awesome to be like, I am doing something that I love. At the same time, it's still a job, and that can be daunting at times. Like it gets, because you're just doing so much work and you just kind of burnt out and you're like, I can't do any, I don't want to look at it anymore. But then, yeah, I have to remember, like, you know, I'm doing something I love to do. So yeah, just sometimes backing away and remembering why you're doing what you're doing, and then just kind of getting out and moving and talking with friends and doing other things you do, like your hobbies and stuff.
Yeah. Also, like, if, you know, as an artist, like, sometimes you just do the same kind of art for so long, the art that you're paid to do, but sometimes it's good to just go and make something, like in some random weird media, just go play with crayons or draw on the sidewalk with chalk or do like some paper mache, just something to kind of get your creative juices flowing. Nobody's grading you. It's about the process, not about the result. And maybe, you know, remember certain jobs you may have had in the past, or you know, have now that you don't want to be doing every day, and that can remind you, like, you know, why you're doing what you're doing, because that's what you'd rather be doing with most of your time.
Do you guys know if your studios offer any inclusion programs to help women get into the industry?
Well, Rooster Teeth is a community-based company. We sort of are in constant communication with our community, and a lot of the people that work there now are people that were inspired by, you know, the shows that we do, and they, you know, started posting their own fan art, and, you know, we noticed, and now, like, you know, they work at Rooster Teeth. Like, we work on Ruby, and they ultimately made a video game based off of the show, but that game was originally designed by a fan, and we legitimized him because we liked what he was doing, and now we have a whole team working with him. So, yeah.
Yeah, EA actually has actively an inclusion group, an employee resource group for women specifically, and you know, they have various programs to kind of support women in the industry. I know there's one that supports girls in STEM, which is, you know, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, you know, supporting women getting into those kinds of fields. So I really like EA for that reason. Like, they definitely have like a really strong desire to promote inclusion and diversity in the studio, because, you know, they know it's best for the fan base and best for, you know, the actual studio itself. So yeah, I'm really lucky to be able to work at a studio that's like that actively supports it.
Are you involved in any of those programs? Sorry.
I'm gonna be joining the women's resource group and hopefully trying to form. There's also one that supports African American artists as well. So I want to get into that if they start an Austin chapter as well.
Okay.
Well, I was at Bioware, so that's pretty cool. But I didn't know about that when I was there.
Yeah.
Most studios I've ever been at, just they're excited about new people coming in, you know, male or female. I don't think. I've visited some colleges and helped out at like portfolios and reviewed people's demo reels. But that was both male and female. I wish there was more that I knew of, female-based ways to get involved.
I think the ERG is fairly recent, but it's been, I think they've been kind of working towards building it, so. It's like, the actual title is fairly recent, but I think it's always kind of been there. So yeah, they support LGBT too, which is great. Yeah.
All right, guys, do you have any advice for students that are looking to get into the industry?
Network, and then more network. You cannot network enough. Even now with me, like I'm always still trying to network, and I feel like I know quite a few people. There's still not enough people. But most of my jobs have all been through networking. But obviously, you know, a good demo reel is always nice. A working website, you want to be able to have information just to like throw it at people, and always just be coming up with, like Harley said earlier, just try to come up with your own work. Don't just rely on work from previous jobs or from your school. Constantly trying to update and do your own work. So that way it's new and unique, and it's not, I know a lot of people who've done like Animation Mentor all come out of the school with the same work. So we used to get reels from animation students, Animation Mentor students, and it's not like they're bad, but they were the same dance, the same walk, the same, you know, climb, the same jump over this. Yeah, we've all seen that before. We want to see something new and exciting.
Yeah, I think a huge thing about it is this industry, like you said earlier, is incredibly small, and learning how to work with other people is really important. So if you can do it now, collaborate with other, students, other people that you can, because like learning how to be a good team player is really, really important, because that reputation will follow you everywhere. Like you wouldn't believe how many people you would see in like random places that were just like, involved in the industry. I remember I was in Dallas, Texas, and I met people that I had, previous coworkers in Atlanta were in Dallas, like for some reason. And just like everybody knew each other. So, if you have a good reputation that follows you, that's really important. That will really help you get into the industry. And also, while you're in school, while you're here, just take advantage of all the resources that you can, and just like make sure you make, as many connections as you possibly can, because this is the time to take advantage of it, and this is the time to learn all that you can. Even if it's not in specifically your field, you still have the facilities to learn different skills. So yeah, diversify your skill set now.
Yeah, and networking isn't just about like going to mixers and passing your card. It's just about being, treating the people around you the way you want to be treated, and helping people out, and being a good person to people who could use like some help or an extra eye, because later down the line you don't know where they're going to be working, what they're going to be doing, and they will remember you fondly, like if you come up in conversation and maybe help you out. Also, I guess time management, that's something that I don't know if anyone, if they're not ready to be good at time management, can do. Like I struggled with it a lot, but I feel like if you can get yourself to say, you can easily sit there and work 12 hours a day, but you'd be surprised how many of those hours you're not working. You're on social media, you're taking breaks, you're doing this, but if you can focus yourself for a finite amount of time, you can kind of do so much more, and you can, prevent yourself from burning out. Starting is the hardest part. Like, just start, get your work done, focus, and then you can move on and go out with your friends and hang out and reboot.
Awesome. So we're gonna open it up for QA now. So yeah, I think we just line up at these microphones on either side and ask away.
You touched on it a little bit. I was wondering if you could talk about collaborating with others, which is huge, right? So I know you're an individual artist, you have these ideas, you have your own work too, but you have to share a lot. You have to do something, pass it on, collaborate with people. I was wondering if you could talk about, is that like a struggle, or is it something that you're happy to do, daily, or at the end of a project that you've worked on a long time? Just wanted to hear your feedback on that.
Yeah, it's a regular part of working in the industry for sure. You almost always have to work on a team unless you're a freelancer, and even then, sometimes you still have to work on a team. So just like kind of like learning how to deal with certain personality types. There's always going to be like you might like in the industry you might like run into some difficult people. You have to like just learn how to survive and work with them, and yeah, exactly. So like bottling everything up and letting conflict kind of well up over time is usually not a good thing. If you have a problem with somebody, take them to a room, talk about it in a very like diplomatic way, so that you guys can come to an agreement and like make sure that the air is clear between you. So but for the most part, it's really enjoyable. You can share ideas, you can collaborate and like build things up and kind of like spitball. It's like, oh, like this, we can have it like this, or we could have it like this. And so it's definitely a very creative process, but sometimes it can be difficult. But yeah, just learning how to deal with people and learning how to talk to other people and treating everybody with respect is really important with collaboration.
A lot of times, lots of times, people get together and get super excited about an idea and start it, and it doesn't go anywhere, and that's okay. As long as you're having fun, that's going to happen. But keep in mind like scope. Maybe when you are collaborating with someone, like try to come up with an idea that is actually manageable, that's not going to take over your lives, because we're all super busy. It's really hard to like complete something together. But when you can find that like magical combination of people who are willing to like put in the time to create something together, it's great. And Dropbox makes it easy to manage projects together, and Skype and everything. So you can have a really cool collaboration with people remotely now, which expands your network so much.
Yeah, the people I work with right now are out of New York, and I'm in Austin. So there's still a lot of teamwork that has to be done. And if you're just working with a group of people to like I'm gonna make a fun new app, there more than likely will be times we'll butt heads, but no great game or great movie has ever been made by just one person. You have to work as a team, and when you're in like a studio, you have to remember that, yeah, you were hired for a reason, you know you're talented. However, there's still a process, or there's still a style that has to be done, and you know, whether you like it or not, sometimes you still have to do what you're kind of being paid or hired to do. And sometimes that can be challenging because you're like, I really want to make them do this really cool thing, but they're like, yeah, we don't have time for that, or it's too expensive, and you're like, okay, fine. But yeah, you want to try to collaborate with as many people as you can. And there's so many fun people out there. It's not often that I find a lot of people that are stubborn and just like refuse to work with people. And if that's the case, then maybe they're not, the person you want to work with. And there's so many people that you can go to instead. But yeah.
Hi, I'm a 3D character artist, and I wanted to know if there's any. Can you hear me? I'll talk really loud. So I'm a 3D character artist, and I wanted to know if there's any specific conventions, events, mixers. I found it's really hard on the East Coast to network with people in an actual like brick and mortar setting. I know that SIGGRAPH is a really big one out west, but do you suggest any out here, or maybe there are ones all over the country that would just be good for networking for someone just starting out?
I believe there is a SIGGRAPH in New York, actually,
Okay.
Or at least more on the East Coast. It's kind of one reason why I moved out to California. I grew up in Connecticut. There is definitely a lot more on the East Coast now, but just remember that you have the world of the internet. There are so many forums and blogs, and even just Facebook groups you can go to. It is always fun to meet someone in person. But there's definitely a lot of introverts, I believe, in this industry. So you definitely find a lot more information, I believe, like on blogs and forums, and that's how you get to really network from people from all over the world, which is great because sometimes you may not. There will be people like in Sweden, or I know people from all over the place now, and yeah, pretty much everything is done over online or the internet. And you can still get a ton of great information. But if you're willing to travel, there are some amazing places in California, in Texas, Washington, a lot of the major hubs. That yeah, you should, if you can and you can afford it, you should definitely make the trip because it's definitely worth it.
Where's PAX East at?
Boston.
It's
Yeah.
Austin?
Boston.
Boston, yeah.
Boston.
I was just say that's not used.
So PAX East is pretty much the only one I know out here. Other than that, I'm not sure if Philadelphia has many like game dev nights, but Austin has a bunch of them. I know LA had a bunch of them where it's just literally all the developers go out and they meet up and they drink beer, and that's the best form of networking because you're just hanging out and you're being friends and stuff. So I guess you can build up connections that way, or if you can find anything out in Philadelphia that, it's just a place for people to go drink and talk about games.
You
You
can
can
start your own.
Definitely start your own.
Make it sound all cool, be like, game dev meet up here. People will come, they won't know who started it.
There's also Indie Hall, like they have a lot of events and
Indie Hall.
yeah, it's an old city.
Thank you.
Okay, and then my question elaborates on the first one with collaboration as well as hers. How would you motivate people right now that are going to school in order to start their own groups? Philly has nothing. You said you have to travel. I know I've researched it for a long time. There's like nothing that, how would you motivate them to start something to have these certain groups right now as screenwriters, as producers, and everything for what avenue would you tell them to get in as far as something innovative that's not yet happening, because what's working right now isn't working?
You have an amazing school full of very talented people. I would start here, definitely. Any of your classmates, your friends, get them together. Go have lunch, go have coffee, and be like, hey, look, like, we need to build up from this. And you start small. Almost all of these, like, beer nights and these little things. They all started with a small group of people, and more people got involved. And before you know it, they turn into conferences, or they turn into panels, or like they don't just start big; they start small. And you are at an amazing school. Like you have a ton of resources and references and amazing people. Just I would start it small.
However, how do you motivate them to get past
If-
that fear?
if you-
A lot of artists are very, like you said, a majority of us are introverted. Like, how do you
Yeah, we don't
motivate them
judge.
to get past that initial
Find fun things to do,
fear?
like go to the park, have coffee. Like what other things would they be interested in? And if they would rather just go to the library at school or go to the computer lab, then just start there. But yeah, just like shoot out. You know, a lot of people are on social media now because they're more comfortable being behind a screen. So start Facebook groups. Start I don't know, any kind of like
So have patience.
Even our, there's a huge community on there. People, you know, if you see someone's work that you like, you can comment on it. You can make fan art about it. If you have a friend of yours and you and that friend have been talking about like, oh, we gotta film this thing. Like maybe you need to be the inspiration. Like if you and your friend are comfortable dedicating a couple hours, a couple weekends to just doing a proof of concept, and then maybe showing it to some of the other people at school and be like, okay, so, you know, we filmed this, but we need someone who's willing to like, you know, model something. But you gotta be the inspiration by making something yourself that you can get people to wanna like jump on the coattails of. And that's how it builds up. And just try time and again. I recently did this crazy little project with this guy who has no experience whatsoever, but he was so passionate. He was willing to pay out of his own paycheck for this project that he got all of these students who were just working remotely to work on. Like he had this screenplay, and I wasn't working at the time, so I just had time, and I wanted to be involved with people who were excited to make something. So I helped him fix the screenplay, and we had like one modeler that he knew from some other place. I don't even know how this collaboration happened. It was like a magical thing where everybody was willing to play their little part, and I ended up just managing the project. Like passion begets passion.
Now that happens, right? And it happens every so often that
It
you
does.
find that magic.
Yeah.
How do you keep it consistent? How do you keep that passion? How do you just keep them motivated? Because as artists, in the beginning you think, oh my goodness, I have something and I want to run with this, and then it's slow. You can make money from fall to winter, and then from winter to summer it's dry.
There's
That
no
budget,
special
that
formula.
Yeah,
creativity,
it's-
yeah.
It really
Yeah.
depends on who
You
you
have
have
to
in
get
the
past
project,
that.
because
Gotcha.
so the most successful projects that I've been involved in are actually with people who are big self-starters and like big, like incredibly passionate people, and the people who can keep that passion up for like with that consistency, the stamina to actually like motivate other people. I remember I was collaborating on a student film, and the director would always just come around to each of us and like, he's like, how's the project going? Are you guys working on it? Where's your work? And so like it kind of motivated all of us to keep going with it, because a lot of us would just fall out of it if we weren't reminded of it. So it's just like you have to, if you were the manager of the project, you have to constantly, you can't be afraid of like reminding your artists to actually keep going with it. So like, you know, if they have clear goals, if they have clear assignments, like, you know, it's like, okay, like if you're starting a group, say, you know, okay, like our incentive for next week's meetup is to bring a piece of, you know, artwork or a piece of script for this concept. And it's like everybody, you know, has to hold themselves to that.
Accountable.
So, yeah, give them something to aim towards, and they'll continue to aim towards it. But if they have no direction and no motivation, then it's really easy to fall out of it, because artists are very flighty. So that's what happens. Yeah.
Okay, thank you guys.
No problem.
Thank you. So I'm going to be brief. I'm not a student, I'm not a teacher. As a matter of fact, I don't have an artistic bone in my body, but I do love games. Thank you for your talk. I really enjoyed the panel. I'm here because of Lauren. I'm her uncle, and she's been playing games since he was 2, you know, Nintendo. But with that said, what fun projects have you are you working on, or have you worked on? Something that you was happy to work on, it was really fun, and when it was finished, it brightened your day.
I worked on various projects, like in the animation industry especially, we had tons of, animated series, pitches, things that have come out. Like Archer is definitely like the biggest one that has reached the most amount of people. But I feel like the most rewarding experience was working on the FX show The League. When the actual thing came out, it was just, it was what it was, but the amount of effort that our team put into it and the amount of quality that we gave it, even though we made do with what we had, and the whole team came together. It was my first experience directing, and we met all of our deadlines, and the actual end product turned out really gorgeous. And so that was definitely the thing I'm most proud of. But yeah, the current project that I'm working on right now is The Simpsons Tapped Out, which is going really well as well. And just I worked on a lot of stuff, but I think the League short was the one I was most proud of working on. What about you guys?
Well, I'm currently, we are in between projects, so we're doing R&D, which is a really fun time for Ruby and Ruby Chibi. I don't know if any of you guys have heard of any of those shows. But,
What is Ruby?
It's an anime series. Four girls going to school, learning how to fight evil, basically. But yeah, there's a lot of creatures and a lot of effects and like a lot of like really interesting character relationships, which you have to develop with the way that the characters interact with each other. So right now we're just I'm having a lot of like these are two of the pet projects I've been able to be with from the beginning, developing these characters, how they move, what they look like, how they interact, like what is the depth of like the facial animation that we can go to with these characters and still maintain like an anime look. Yeah, this project has been super fun and super creative, and yeah.
I'm going to be fully honest, my favorite part is the end of the project. And not because the project has come to an end, but you actually get to see your work come together with everyone else's, and you're like, whoa, I made that? That's pretty cool.
Yes.
When I animate, I don't animate with any textures. It's all grayscale. There's no background. It's just like in a scene, and occasionally, yeah, you'll play it in game, but it's not at its full potential. And then it'll come out, and you're like, oh, I did that. That's so cool.
Yeah, that's the most motivating part. Seeing the end product for sure.
Oh yeah, the end product's my favorite.
Yeah, I still remember that moment when we all got together as a studio and watched the, when it aired live on TV, and like we just all got to see everything, how it played together and how beautiful it turned out, and it was really rewarding because it was 2 weeks fresh out of our crunch, and like it's just like we did it, guys. Like here it is, like and the world is seeing it. That's a really cool feeling.
By the way, you're my biggest fan writer.
Aww. It was a fun show.
What kind of programs do you guys typically use in the industry?
Maya.
You're 3D.
Yeah. Oh yeah. For 3D or for 2D?
Either.
Okay. Maya is a pretty standard program for 3D, like Autodesk products. A lot of companies do use 3ds Max, though. I think in Montreal, I hear that people are using XSI sometimes, but it's mostly Maya. And like once you know how to get around the 3D software, you can kind of find your way around the rest of them.
As far as art goes, on the 3D side, I have worked in both 3D Max and Maya, but you have to know that you're not, when you get into a studio, you're not going to just be asked to work in software like that. You're going to be asked to work in engines and different stuff like that. So don't be scared when you go in and be like, oh, by the way, we need you to also be proficient in Unreal and Unity or this custom engine that we have. You have to learn all our tools. I feel like the majority of the work isn't just art. It is kind of being like a technical person. I think that was a hard thing for me to learn right away, but I definitely got better at that. But yeah, as far as like 3D art goes, if you're looking for like modeling, there's like ZBrush and pretty much Max and Maya, and I don't really know what for 2D.
Yeah, for 2D art, the main thing, especially if you're in animation, especially TV animation, Toon Boom is a really big up-and-coming program for sure. Like, absolutely. So I think that's really important to learn. Flash sometimes also features, just like knowing the creative suite in general is really important for 2D art. But yeah, when you work in games, it's definitely, there's technical aspects that you have to learn. But when I got into it, there wasn't that much like engine stuff that I had known beforehand, so I learned a lot of that on the job. So yeah, the main things, learn the Adobe Creative Suite. Photoshop is like going to feature, Illustrator might too. So just like make sure that you have kind of like, I know there's a lot of student copies that are out that you can get, for cheap. So, just make sure that you at least have a basic knowledge of like most of those programs. But the big ones, Toon Boom, Flash, Photoshop, Illustrator, and maybe After Effects as well, depending. But Toon Boom is a big one.
Yeah, and Adobe, I guess probably most people are aware of this now, they have decent like monthly rates where you can get the entire suite for like, if you get it in a certain time, you can get like Photoshop and another program for $10 a month, or you can get the entire suite for $30 a month, which might be better than buying the entire program.
Yeah, nobody wants to spend $2,000 right off the bat.
Thank you.
Hi, so you guys said that depending on the size of the industry or the size of the company, you would either have to wear a whole bunch of hats or you'd have to specialize. So as far as portfolios go, do you find yourself specializing because you've been working in one specific part of the industry, or do you still throw in other things that you can do in case a potential employer is looking for that as well?
That's what your resume is for. So your resume is really going to describe exactly what you can and can't do. And it's, I always have a whole list of all the programs I've done and like webcasting and stuff like that. What you really want to show is what you want to be known for, whatever your talent is. And so when I started animation, I kind of just generalized. I just had like, walk cycles and idles and like the normal stuff. But now I specialize mostly in creatures and combat animation. So I focus more on all my combat and creature design that I would like to do. And I think over time you can specialize in that direction. But yes, I have worn multiple hats, but I do that all on my resume.
You probably are specializing now, like in a specific thing. What would that be, by the way?
See, that's the thing. I'm wearing all the hats.
Okay. So I initially, you do at some point have to decide. You might want to, because you can't apply for every job. You have to apply for a job. So I guess you're dabbling now. You're seeing what you like to do all the time. It's kind of hard to finally make that decision, but at least you know what industry you're in to some extent. It's not like, do I want to be in like economics or psychology? Like you kind of narrow it down a little bit. I don't know. At some point, you do make that decision, and just I would say focus on animation or 3D modeling or whatever it is, and then look at the companies that do the work that you really like and like, or the companies that you would hope to apply for, and like trying to create a portfolio that would appeal to that specific job description, and that's how you're going to get hired.
Yeah, I would definitely say make a portfolio tailored to the hat that you enjoy wearing the most. Yeah. And I think a good litmus test for how much you enjoy something is like you work on it for like 8 hours straight and you just didn't realize how fast the time passed. That's usually a good test for like how much you enjoy a certain area of what you're working on. So yeah, I would say definitely seek out the jobs that kind of like relate to the skill set that you want to focus on, because like I feel like you can tailor your portfolio to certain jobs, but I also feel like that's kind of like making your body of work kind of spread out amongst things. And if there are multiple things that you're interested in, you can also have a portfolio website that has different tabs for illustration or graphic design, things like that. But definitely try to like have like the thing that you're good at, and then you're able to do other things if you must. But it's definitely really important to have like kind of like a direction to go into. So try to find that. No problem.
I'm still learning like Maya, and I just got finished learning some of Blender. I still have to max it all out for like workflow speed, and I was just wondering like when do you know if you are proficient enough in workflow speed to using hotkeys or whatever to actually even try, and you won't get laughed out of like trying to apply for it in a studio or something like that.
You never know. Everyone's workflows is incredibly different. Everyone's. And the thing is, you don't want to base it off someone else's. You want to create your own, because if you try too hard to work off someone else's workflow, you'll find yourself always struggling. And you don't have to be a master at all these programs. Each studio is not going to expect you to be a master unless you're a 10-year or a 20-year, then you kind of should know. But if you're just starting out, they know, and they're more than welcome to or willing to work with you. Like when I started, I didn't know any of the programs, so I was like, what's Maya? And then I had California. I feel like a lot of students in California were definitely Maya heavy. And then I came to Texas, and everyone was 3D Max heavy. And I was like, it's still the same concept. You're still doing the same, art or whatever. Just the keys are named differently, and you're like, where's how do you? And you're like, what? But you'll learn. A lot of students were really good at working with me, and their first 2 years were definitely slow. And I definitely was always like, so how do you do this again? And YouTube videos are the best. But yeah, don't feel that you have to be amazing at it to even attempt to try to apply. Just apply. Like, the worst that can happen is they say no, and that happens a lot. So don't feel like it's you.
And if they do say yes, they hired you because they like what you can do, and the rest will follow.
That's true.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hello. First, I'm from Connecticut as well, so again, you guys talked a lot about women in the workplace and their acceptance, and you also spoke briefly on misogyny in video games. I was wondering if you could all elaborate a little bit on the ways you, your friends, and your colleagues have pushed for better depiction of women and minorities in video games.
Yeah.
And animation.
Are you talking about like how characters are portrayed, or
Yeah.
how? That one's hard.
Yeah, I mean, definitely in the ways that, I can contribute to, just like, I work on the art team, and so I can see character designs on the ground floor, and if there's things that I see that, a woman wouldn't wear, or, if I see like a crowd of characters and like there's no people of color, I'm just like, I poke an artist, and I'm like, hey, like, what's with that? Like, how about, maybe you can diversify this crowd a little bit, or, it's very little ways that I, try to do it, but I feel like every little thing helps. And I feel like that's why diversity in the industry in general is important, because if everything is really homogenous in the industry, then things are going to be homogenous when they come out. So, having more people with different viewpoints will definitely help kind of, diversify what is in the game and making better representation for every group of people, rather than just, a few group of people. So, I definitely try to constantly push for, it's like, oh, this character is being depicted as a stereotype, maybe can we change the dialogue a little bit? Or, this character wouldn't wear that, can we, give her some more clothes, please? So, things like that. Sometimes it doesn't always work, but, when it does, it feels really good that you, in a small way, you help create change.
It's definitely, I think it's gotten better. I don't know if you ever played like the new Blizzard game, but a lot of their women aren't these like skinny mini, helpless with like hardly any armor, and the guys are like totally decked out. No, they're buff, they're strong, they have amazing armor, like big weapons. You're like, yeah. It's always weird seeing the men in like crazy armor, and they're head to toe, you can't even see their faces, and out comes the women like big chested, like Harley. They're like, you get shot, like that's not gonna protect you. Like, get little dicky weapons. As far as animation goes, if I get a female character, I don't try to make her much different than her male counterpart. Some of her moves will be a little different, but I don't. And there's nothing wrong with being sexy. I think, but over stylizing a gender, I think. I try not to do that. I don't do the catwalk for the wax, for the walk cycle. I make sure if she's a strong character, I make her a strong character, and I think that will play well in the game later on.
Very cool. Then real quick, who are your favorite female protagonists in video games?
I love Zarya from Overwatch and Farah from Overwatch. Currently, that's what I can think about right now. And Alloy, too, from Zero Horizon Dawn.
Yeah, just finished that.
Yeah.
I'm more of a female protagonist from my favorite animated movies kind of person.
Yeah.
Favorites. Put me on the spot.
I don't know if I have a favorite, but every time a new game comes out and they don't portray the woman as like some weak, sassy thing, I don't know, it just makes me feel better as a person in the industry.
Yeah, I think a lot of the games I play, I get to create my own character, so I make a character that's I feel like is me. So I guess that would be the protagonist, and like Dark Souls or something. I get to create like a female, even though she ends up looking like a zombie anyway. I'm okay with that.
Very cool. Thank you guys.
Hi. So I'm a student here, and I wanted to know how would you go about building your portfolios, just starting off, what are the contents that you would put in it? I've been told that you would put a variety of things in there, but then also I was told that you would put in the things that you would focus on for like the career choice you would choose.
I think if you're starting out, you can be a little general. Like, you don't have to specialize right away, because there's been so many people in the industry who are like, okay, I'm gonna do this, so I'm gonna do it, and then they get into the industry and they're like, oh no, I like what he's doing, and they kind of like shift. I know my husband has changed his job position at least 6 times. He's gone from animation to audio to production to tenor and slash programming. So he's doubled every year. And it's okay to be a little more generalist, because as far as students go, and when I have seen student reels, it's nice to know that they know, like for animation, it's nice to know that they know the basics of animation. So it's nice to see that they can do a little, and I'm not quite sure about art, but I think it's nice to just get an idea that you know what you're doing, and that we can trust to say that, okay, we need her to build this environment and that she's capable of doing it, or that she can work on this animation because we've seen that she's done it. So don't worry right away about being so specialized, but it's nice to get an idea for your own sake, for your future, what you want to do.
Yeah, definitely as a 2D animator for sure. It's like, yeah, like what you said, it's like the biggest thing is making sure that you have the fundamentals of animation down, that you can, that you have good drawing skills and that you have good, motion and, volume control and all these things that are important. But specifically where I'm at as a 2D illustrator, having a weak point as an illustrator is very important. So, even if it's just like kind of like focused on, a few things, they can, as long as people can see what your skill set is and that you actually have the skills to accomplish, what they're looking for, it can tend to work pretty well. Because I fell into background art even though my portfolio was mostly character design. So, but the main thing was that they saw that I had digital painting skills and that could translate over to background art pretty easily. So sometimes it does work out to you go into a completely different field than you set out to be. But yeah, definitely good to kind of know what you like and know what you want to work in, because if you get hired onto something that you're completely miserable and you don't want to be there either. So, just make sure that you're kind of focusing on, what you really love to do and having a portfolio that showcases what you love to do.
Yeah, I mean, just on top of that, like, it can be broad, but say you want to show off animation, I'm sure there's enough resources for you to understand, like, the 12 principles of animation, like what would showcase that best, and do your best to exemplify, like, your ability to animate, even if you haven't chosen, like, the specific style that you want to focus on yet.
We're going to take the last 2 questions, and then just a reminder, if you have more questions, there will be a reception afterwards, just outside these doors, so you'll be able to ask them one-on-one.
Steve, I wanted to do like a prize giveaway too, so I have 3 things up here that I want to ask you guys some questions, see if you guys know some answers.
Hi ladies, you guys were absolutely amazing, and I totally admire you guys. I'm not an art student, I'm a nanny. Actually, I paint on rocks, that's about all art that I do. But I definitely am a gamer, but you guys are naming stuff that I never heard of, so I need to get my gaming skills up. I wanted to know, is there like a dream company, when you guys like first started out or now, was there like a dream company that you guys wanted to work for, wanted to apply for, wanted to, collab with?
Pixar.
Everybody wanted to work for Pixar.
Of course, okay.
Pixar one day, it's like saying, I'm going to be in the Olympics forever.
Okay. So, like, well, how hard is it to get into Pixar? Is it like?
Pixar's top of the line. Like, Pixar's like a company, I mean, you know what, there's a lot of styles out there and they're all amazing, and like, and now that my view of the field has broadened, so has my realization that there's actually a lot of really amazing studios to work at besides Pixar. Like, Pixar's kind of like a cliche thing to say, what we all say in the beginning, because they brought 3D animation as a film style like to the table and like made all of us, including Melissa, like passionate about the animation industry.
I think DreamWorks has really stepped up.
DreamWorks,
really
yeah.
stepped up.
But there's like other companies, like like effects houses that specialize in things like, there's a company in Australia called Animal Logic, and they outsource a lot of like the creature animation that you'll see in movies and stuff. Because there's like effects style animation, and then there's CG animation, and it's different because one's supposed to like exist in a live action feature, one is like purely like animated within its own style. So yeah, like I guess.
ILM's a really good one too. That's ILM.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
the studio I always
It's
wanted
like
to work for.
big
but-
time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It could be both.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Like, especially when I first got into TV, it was like, I wanted to work at Cartoon Network and just like be really creative and work on all these cool shows. And then, on the gaming side of it, like, really what I wanted to see was kind of more games that focus on kind of experiential, like, creativity, like games like Journey. I think working for that game company would be like so amazing, and just like and it's called That Game Company. Like, I'm not saying That Game Company; it's actually the title of the place. But yeah, That Game Company makes Journey and Abzu and games that like really make you feel like you're a part of like an adventure and environment. And like working at a company like that was always like a cool idea to me. Just really being creative and going out there, out of the box with art.
As far as games go, I've started off playing Nintendo. Like, I've always loved Nintendo. I love side-scroller games. I think Nintendo up in Washington would probably be my ultimate, like, retired, like, I've done it.
That'd be like full circle for me, for sure.
Well, thank you. I hope you guys get there.
Yes, hi. Thank you for this. This was a lot of really great information. The one question that I wanted to follow up with, you had mentioned your favorite software, the ones that you use most frequently. What about the hardware? Like, what about desktop, laptop, operating system? What's your favorite? Like, what would your ideal workstation be?
Yes, it also depends on what you want to do. Most computers nowadays will support the software that you need. However, if you're like a big time gamer like my husband, he's straight up Alienware, but he also, like, you can also build, I know a lot of people who just build their own. I wouldn't say there's any particular brand of hardware, but yeah, it's all within your budget and what you really want to do with it. But like I said, most computers nowadays will support the engines and the software that you need. Unless you're talking VR, and that's a whole nother, that's a whole nother
Yeah, I'm a 2D artist, so I don't need much to operate. I just need a nice, 8 to 16 gigs of RAM. I'm good to go. But in terms of like actual hardware, like to draw on, my Cintiq 22HD is my favorite thing in the world. So if it's not cheap, but if you can save up for it, it will last you a very, very long time, and it is your best friend. And I think that I think it's a really great tool to have, especially for an artist like who focuses on 2D and drawing heavily, and line art specifically. It's all great.
Like, I mean, with Cintiq, it's hard with the mouse, and I'm like, what is this thing?
Yeah, having a pen is just like your best friend. I love it so much.
I'm not very technical. I usually like ask the tech leads like what's new, what's awesome. But like I like to work with an SSD card so I can work really fast, and a quad core machine, and I use like Wacom tablet. I mean, basic stuff.
Yeah, pretty much anything that doesn't lag or slow down your process is good enough.
Working on a laptop can be challenging though.
Yeah, that's
I mean, if you can go
And
desktop,
PCs.
go
Just
for sure.
like a tiny laptop monitor.
Oh yeah.
yeah, no,
Never
that's
fun.
challenging.
And
I
like
feel I'm
2 to
spoiled.
3
I can work on,
monitors
like,
at
3
least.
monitors.
You can't see it.
Cool. Thank you.
All right, so I have some prizes to give out. So I'm going to ask some game-specific questions. First up, we have a deck of Dragon Age playing cards. So our question is, in Dragon Age Inquisition, 3 of your first companions are a human, a dwarf, and an elf. What is the name of one of these characters?
I saw them over there.
Vera, do you want all 3?
You can go ahead and name all 3.
Sandra, Barrett, and Soest.
Awesome. Number 2, what are 3 EA games that have been released in this past year?
Yes, sir.
2 EA games.
Titanfall 2 and Mass Effect Andromeda.
Yes. Alright, and then for Mass Effect Andromeda.
Oh my god.
This one's a little difficult. So, name 5 alien species in the Mass Effect universe.
Turian, Quarian, Ket, and Baron.
Yeah.
Baron of bullets.
Yes. Thank you guys. That was awesome.